This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to coverage of Round 4 of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series, live tonight from Watkins, Glen International in Watkins, Glen, New York. I am James Blank, the voice of Podium Esports, alongside Taylor Burrish, and Cisco Scamuza is always punching the buttons in the virtual production trailer. And Taylor, we enter week 4 of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series. Not too much to speak of on the car so far as the new build that came out yesterday is concerned. Only a small decrease in the size of the fuel tank to 99 gallons, but with the way they've tweaked consumption, it's pretty much net even from the early returns that we've heard from PCA drivers who tested before tonight's event. So we turn our questions and our attention back to the one major question of this series so far, which is, can anybody stop William Levesque?
That is the biggest question of all season currently so far there, James, and hello everyone. Looking at the qualifying that's going on right now, John Koch as well as Gresham Wagner, who have been front runners along with Michael Polasek, have been front runners all season long, might have something to say different about tonight's race, as we're still winding down the laps of qualifying, so anything is possible to happen. But this could be maybe a little bit of a niche in the armor of right now of William Levesque as the points are coming up on board. Let's take a look at those.
And you can see what kind of lead Levesque has built in these first few races. Already clear of second place John Mahalia by almost 20. And then you have to go back another 8 to third place in points, Matthew Kikas and Liam Radzitas. Those two tied for P3 technically at the moment. Same for Kenny Brown and John Koch, who are tied for that fifth spot. So you've got Koch, Brown, Radzitas, Kikas, all in a pretty tight battle there, but Mahalia and Levesque have separated themselves from the group. At this point, though, we're going to bring in our featured interview of the night, as we always do before these races. And tonight we have Mike Nyden racing out of the Peach State region of the PCA. Mike, good evening and welcome to the broadcast.
Hey, James, how are you? It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Doing all right myself, and very happy to have you on because it gives us a chance to introduce the PCA steering committee, which was established between Series 1 and 2 in order to sort of guide the series. So as one of the members of the steering committee, tell everyone what the steering committee does for PCA SRS.
Well, what we did, we were really tasked with taking the terrific start that we had from last season and putting our arms around the suggestions, the recommendations, and the likes that the racers had from last season and aiming forward. And it's been a real pleasure. You know, one of the things that's just been fabulous is the group of guys, including Doug and Andrew, Will Yu, Liam Rudzitis. I mean, it's just been a fabulous group, and these guys really are about getting things done.
And I like Liam here, and I like the fact that you brought up Liam because I know he's sort of one of the examples. You've had a significant amount of experience in sim racing in general, not just iRacing. And you've been around for a while to see this sort of develop, and it's always been a big point of yours to try and draw in the younger generation and those who are following in your footsteps into sim racing. Can you talk a little bit about why you find that to be so important?
You know, James, I loved, and I still do, auto racing, and I'm fairly new to sim racing. I've only been involved in this for a year and a half, maybe 2 years. But I got my first competition license in 1973 at a time where you had to be 21 years of age in order to get a competition license. I thought I had pretty good ideas back then, and I've grown up a lot since then. And I know that young guys like Liam, like other members of the racers this season, have got things to say that it's a perspective that I don't have, and I appreciate them. I'm glad to be part of this. And kind of funny, I think Liam is 17 years old, and I outweigh him by about 50 years.
So it doesn't matter how old or young you are, there's an opportunity for you here in the PCA SRS if you're a PCA member, of course. Mike, before we let you get on the grid and get ready for tonight's race, let everyone know who you need to thank for making the 71 run so well.
Well, I'm going to thank everybody at Peach State, number one, particularly Andrew Elsom, who was the genesis of the Peach State League. Also, my wife. If you look at my car, our company is sponsoring the car. Very proud of that. And if you'll notice my car also, it's Stars and Stripes. I think we all owe a debt of gratitude to the men and women who serve in our military and who make sure that we have the ability to enjoy the pastimes that we do.
We'll concur on all of those points, Mike. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us briefly before we get going, and best of luck to you tonight at the Glen.
You bet. Thanks. We'll see you.
There's Mike Knight, and one of the Peach State region members of the PCA racing tonight in the Stars and Stripes number 71 Porsche 911 RSR. And he talks a lot about the Peach State region, which has been so influential as you take a look at the layout here at Watkins Glen. But Peach State, very influential in getting sim racing going with the PCA, one of the largest sim racing chapters in the PCA. And they have more participants in Series 2 of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series than any other region in the PCA. So you'll see a lot of Peach State influence across these races. Now, if you're looking at Watkins Glen on a map, as you are, this is a pretty quick course, at least to begin with. You get down the hill, get down onto the brakes into turn one quickly, but the run up the S's through to the back straight all the way to the inner loop is just about flat foot. You don't have to get on the brakes until you're entering into the inner loop. And then you get down towards the carousel area, and that's when it sort of slows up again. And you get through the boot section, Taylor, and you've got a lot of really weird elevation changes and long looping left-handers and right-handers where you want to get on the gas really quickly, but you just can't because the radii of these turns are all so big.
They are, especially coming out of the toe and then entering into the heel of the boot when you're coming out of turn 7 and 8. This track, even though it may seem simple, especially tonight, we're not running the inner loop, we're just running the straight up back stretch to the outer loop section of the course tonight. It's still going to provide a lot of challenges for drivers, so it's going to be interesting to see what they can do, how they can overcome it, and also find the right strategy to take home the checker flag here in upstate New York.
Go and go fast. Usually a pretty solid strategy at most places, but I think here especially because you'll see incredible speeds coming down the back straight here at Watkins Glen. Some of the fastest speeds in the whole of the PCA SRS. Very, very quick track indeed as we bring you tonight's starting grid for round 4 of Series 2 of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series from Watkins Glen. John Cook will start on pole with the fastest qualifying time of 1 minute 40 seconds, 1 minute 40.251 seconds. Gresham Wagner will roll off from P2 tonight. Michael Polisek starts from 3rd. Points leader William Levesque will start from the 4th spot, so a little bit of work to do for the 144 to get to the front of the field. Leif Peterson rolls off from the 5th position. 6th is where you'll find Matthew Kikis. John Malia, currently 2nd in points, starts 7th on the grid tonight. 8th is the 05 of Liam Radzitis, also in that steering committee that Mike Knight mentioned, and Cliff Kayer and Mark Huth round out the top 10.
James Patak will start in the 11th position. Alongside him, Christopher Pies in 12th. Joseph Stiefel will start in the 13th position alongside Brett Holmes in the 06. David Stewart will start in 15th alongside Jonathan Schum in 16th, with Kenny Brown and Alberto Fonseca in 17th and 18th. Rounding out your top 20 will be Clifton Lipple and Charles Yao.
Matthew Mitchell begins tonight's race from the 21st position. 22nd belongs to the 32 of Dewey King. Michel Levesque starts from 23rd, and Carlos Lopez will roll off from 24th. Bruce Robinson begins from 25th. 26th will be Andrew Elsom. Shaibal Banyopadhyay will start from 27th. 28th will be Jonathan Patterson. Jake Steinbrink starts from 29th. 30th will be Mark Hoffman.
Liam McNeil will be starting in the 31st position, as he'll be the only driver left who has set a qualifying time. Michael Evans will start 32nd alongside Francois Grayling in 33rd position will be Michael Knighton, 34th Francois Grayling, and rounding out your 35-car grid is Alex Hillier.
There's your grid for tonight's race at Watkins Glen. As we take a look very quickly at the track facts, this is a 3.40 mile, 5.43 kilometer circuit, 11 turns here at the Glen. With the boot, we race in the afternoon towards the dusk. Current in-sim time is iRacing Day, May 15, 2019. Current in-sim time is just before 5:30 Eastern Daylight Time. We look at temperatures in these tracks and in this air. 77 degrees Fahrenheit is the ambient temp. Track temp 94 degrees, so it's been baking in the sun a little bit. Pretty much no wind to speak of. Headed to the north at 2 miles an hour. Humidity at 57% here. We'll have a lot of fun for the next hour at Watkins Glen, and we'll also give a nod to John Cook, who put down the fastest time tonight, and will snatch away the Fast Track Sims pole position pole award from William Levesque. First time I think all season that Levesque hasn't won it. So congratulations to Cook for winning the pole for tonight's race, and the bragging rights and the $50 that come with that, courtesy of Fast Track Sims. And if you're not familiar with Fast Track Sims, the high-quality simulator cockpits they produce, you can visit them at www.fasttracksims.com for more information. Tonight's setups are also provided by Santa McCullough, setups for iRacing. Join the setups for iRacing Discord server for quality iRacing setups. And also, now, while we have a moment, we'll go ahead and thank the steering committee, just because they do play such a big part in making this series so successful. And the PCA would like to recognize and thank the members of the steering committee for their efforts to create an engaging year of sim racing in the PCA. These committee members are Doug Atkinson, Mike Knight, William Yu, Liam Rodzitas, and Andrew Elsom. The PCA thanks their members for their time and their dedication to develop PCA sim racing. More news and notes to come for you all a little bit later in tonight's broadcast, but what do you expect in particular here at the Glen, Taylor Burrows?
Well, all I gotta say is going to be fast pace. It's going to be interesting to see what William Levesque can do starting in the 4th position, and what's the top 3 currently starting on the top 3 positions, what they can do. Now they're starting up in front of our points leader, William Levesque. That is going to be one of the keys that I'm going to be watching here tonight at Watkins Glen.
This will be an interesting one because Levesque is not starting from the pole, and that's a first, I think. We haven't really had a decent chance to see what he can do from a little bit further back in the field. We'll get a good shot at it tonight, but in either case, we're glad to have all of you with us here on the iRacing Esports Network for this 4th round of Series 2 of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series from Watkins Glen International. Pace car will make the turn off the front straightaway here, come down towards pit road, and get set to go. It'll be John Cook and Gresham Wagner to lead us to the green flag. As the pace car pulls off, we'll wait for the green flag to come out. It's off, we're away, and we are racing at Watkins Glen in the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series as they all fan out 2 by 2 by 2. Coming down the front straightaway, all pretty even here through this very tricky turn 1. You're downhill, you're on the brakes pretty hard. Not necessarily easy to get through there, but still side by side for the lead. Cook and Wagner, neither one wants to give up any room, but Wagner's going to get the run on the outside to clear Cook. So Wagner will go to the point, and then Michael Polosek will try and find his way back up to the rear bump for William Levesque, who's already alongside Cook to try and get the 2nd position.
Yeah, no inner loop this time, so it's just a long back straightaway before they go into the outer loop now, as they now dive to the bottom of the apex of that corner before they make their way into the boot. But right now, it is still going to be Gresham Wagner, your new race leader, as John Coke is trying to find a way to hold off the likes of William Levesque.
Levesque in a decent spot for the moment, but doesn't want to lose too much time to Wagner, who, in fairness, has not jumped all that far ahead of Cook. Still very early on in tonight's race, but you would think that if you've got a chance to try and put some time on William Levesque, you are going to take it because these drivers have not had too much of an opportunity to do that so far in this series. So we'll see if Wagner can stretch it out a little bit, but it's all pretty even as is. Pretty good battle here a little bit further back. Lee Peterson and Liam Radzitas together there. And then all nose to tail pretty close until you get to about, I'd say, Joseph Steifel and David Stewart's the next sort of side-by-side battle.
There's another battle going on right now that Charles Zhao was able to get by Jonathan Schum. Now he's under attack from Alberto Fonseca as well as they come out of the final corner down the front straightaway. Jonathan Schum's going to drop back to at least 18th position when they come across the line, make it 19th now, as he's going to be under attack from Matthew Mitchell into the 90.
So Mitchell trying to fend off some of these battles here. You got Dewey Kang right behind him. Schum already beginning to open up the gap just a bit. Kang closing in through the S's as it stretches out through there. In the meantime, you got Levesque with a very, very big run on the outside, or inside rather, as he's trying to hang on as Wagner is fighting off John Cook for the race lead, who's got the inside going into the boot and may well take over P1, and they nearly get into each other entering the boot. That was close, but it will be Cook retaking the lead from Wagner, who will now have to fight off Levesque.
Great battle going in there. Coke had a great opportunity to go in, and he took it. Almost made the contact, but so thankfully no contact was made for that between the two drivers. But William Levesque was definitely looking on, ready to make the attack if those two made a mistake.
Waiting, and just, I think, very patiently biding his time, knowing that he's got an incredible amount of pace. The 10-lap runs, in particular, for Levesque were very, very good in practice, and I suspect that we'll see any sort of speed out of that machine come, not necessarily on these initial laps, but once we get to maybe 10, 15 laps somewhere in there, I think that's really when you're going to start seeing it, because he's already got a pretty good run here coming down the front stretch.
Not going to make any attempts going into the 90 as he shows a nose just a little bit, but is going to just follow suit with Gresham Wagner as they make the climb up the S's. And a great job. Single file pretty much all the way throughout the top 10 right now. The smooth sailings. Everybody doesn't like to try to go 2x2 up to the S's. It's very difficult, very tight to negotiate through, especially through traffic. So they're just taking their time. It is earliest start of the race. Anything can happen.
It's a very tricky part of this track. It funnels up right there at the top of the hill where you got the bridge that you have to worry about, and it makes things very difficult as Cook got loose coming through the outer loop. That's going to bring Wagner and Levesque right to his rear bumper once again, and it might drag Podolak into this too. He's not too far off the back of Levesque's rear bumper, so could have a 4-car battle for the race lead over the next maybe 2 or 3 laps.
As they're now making their way out of the boot here in a few moments, Levesque takes a look to the inside on Gresham Wagner, thinks twice of it, goes back in line to follow suit as they come out of turn 8 and up towards the climb of turn 9. This is probably one of the most difficult corners because you're a little bit off camber and the car gets very light through this section of the course, so you have to be a little bit easy on the throttle input to make it through that corner.
I think that 8-9 run absolutely is one of the trickiest places. 8 is very much a carbon copy of turn 1 in a lot of ways. It's not quite as downhill, but you're working with just about the same sort of turning radius and just about the same sort of braking. So you got to get down on the brakes hard, and then you got to be very careful on the throttle application in turn 9 in particular. That's a corner where it's very easy to spin yourself out in low gears because you've got so much torque going through the wheels trying to get the car back up to speed.
Most definitely. As the rest of the top field is going up through the S's once again, going down this long back straightaway without the inner loop. This is a good opportunity where we see the draft coming to pay as we now see Wagner take a look to the outside to get by John Cook. Cook as they go down the back straightaway in towards the outer loop. I think Wagner will have enough, but Cook decides to fight back though just a little bit. Here comes Levesque.
Thought about fighting it back, but Wagner will go back to the point. Levesque stays in third. Pulisic hasn't really been able to gain as much as I thought he might with all the battling going on amongst the front three drivers. He's just still sort of sitting there. Don't know if he's waiting for an opportunity to pounce on if any one of these front three slip up, which I certainly won't rule out. They're racing relatively close at the moment, but as it stands, it's Wagner in front, Cook there, but here comes Levesque. He'll get a very good run on Cook going into 8, and I think this should be his move for P2, and is. Gets right to the bottom, right underneath Cook, and William Levesque now up to second.
Great pass indeed for William Levesque through turn 8. Now he's going to try to go for the lead now as they come out of turn 9, but backs off just a little bit. Quick note on Mike Polisek. He could possibly be saving a little bit of fuel maybe. That way he has not have to put as much when he comes to make his pit stop.
It is a very, very tricky cat and mouse game that you're playing if you're in a fuel saving point and you're Polisek with all that track position. You can see the battle for the lead right in front of you, but if he is saving fuel as you suspect, you have to be careful here. If you just can't quite push it the way you'd want to, because if you do, you'll burn off the fuel tank far, far quicker than you would think, and especially here at Watkins Glen, where you're on the throttle for so much of the lap. I think amongst the PCA SRS, this might be the highest throttle by percent track of Alden, maybe save for VIR. You stand on the gas a lot, you burn a lot of fuel. You've got to be very intentional if you save fuel, as Levesque gets right underneath Wagner, made that look easy going into the outer loop. So Levesque does now have the race lead over Wagner and Cook.
Now let's see what Levesque can do and now up in front, which is probably much the same as he's been doing all season, just pull away from the competition. We have a new driver up into the top 5, Leif Peterson, getting by Matthew Kikis before coming into the outer loop. Great pass he had there. Move him up to P5.
Now that Levesque is beginning to gap this field, already has about 5 or 6 car lengths on Wagner and Cook. It gives us the opportunity to slide a little bit further back to look at some of these battles, and we'll have a good one going into 8 here. John Malia currently second in points, and Leah Rodzicis to the 05, trying to sort themselves out for 7th and 8th. And then another good battle just a little bit further back. Chris Bonnes and Cliff Kerr racing for 9th and 10th. We'll stay with Malia and Rodzicis for the moment.
Yeah, Malia needs to have a good run to try to keep up the points gain that he has, currently sitting in 2nd in the points standing. So every position will matter for him to try to get as much points to close the gap as best that he can on William Levesque.
Malia did a really nice job of opening up the gap on Rodzicis as we have a Metropolitan New York versus Upper Canada battle. If we're taking the regions of the PCA into account, something that distinguishes all of these drivers in the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series. They all hail from one of a nearly 150 plus strong PCA regions across North America, all throughout the United States, all throughout Canada. So if you want a good geography lesson, you come to the right place. Upper Canada region that Liam Rodzicis hails from covers a lot of Ontario and the greater Toronto metropolitan area, and the Metro New York area that John Malia hails from, not surprisingly, covers a lot of New York City. So Toronto versus New York, if you sort of battle it out, I know, I'll put it this way, if that were an NBA battle, I know which direction I want to go to, but in a Porsche battle, I think it's probably a little bit more even.
It is a little bit more even compared to an NBA basketball game in this instance here at as we see Rodzicis get loose coming out of there. Great recovery indeed for him.
Really solid recovery for Rodzicis. It was tricky. Going up that hill and getting back on the gas is tricky. But then again, I think there are a lot of places here at Watkins Glen where you have to be very careful about how you apply the throttle. There are certain tracks where I think it's a little bit easier to just sort of mash the gas and go. And there are certainly some stretches of this racetrack that are like that. The S's in particular, and that run up to the back stretch is not all that complicated. But there are other spots here, like the run through the boot in particular, and turn 1, where you've got to be very particular about how you get on the gas. As we watch the 14 of Kevin Brown, he's battling the 13th place car, Joseph Steifel, in that 003 machine.
Kenny Brown started back in 17th position, has gained about 3 spots here as they go into the 90. Great effort here that he's been running in that number 23 Porsche as they make the climb up the S's. Gonna try to follow suit with him as they climb, maybe take a peek to the inside or outside when they come out of there. and see if he can get a good run utilizing the slipstream to try to slip by and move up into the 13th. There he goes down to the inside. He's going to go side by side with Stifle as they're going to go side by side, still nose to, or even up now before they go to the outer loop. Great pass indeed. Stifle, though, is going to fight back on the outside.
Really solid stuff from Kenny Brown, trying to sneak his way through all this, but Stifle still has that run on the inside. So still in good shape for them. But yeah, pretty solid crossover there entering the boot.
It was great job indeed, but couldn't quite close the deal. Now he's going to go to the inside again as they come up through turn 7. Couldn't get to the inside quick enough as we see Stifle shut the door on him now. Has a little bit of a gap before they go into turn 8.
All in good shape here. Stifle coming out of the Chicago region of the PCA. Brown, one of the 10 Pete Staters that you've got in Series 2 of the PCA SRS. So Chicago versus Atlanta here, which, I'll put it this way, if it were an NFL battle, much to our producer's dismay, even though the Falcons weren't all that great, I like their ability to put up a little bit more points in this case.
I can already see Cisco shaking his fist at you right now, James.
Oh, he'll kill me. He'll kill me. I know he'll kill me later. So I'll appease him when I come back, like the grief-sparing gifts in a few weeks from a California adventure. But here goes Brown to the inside of Stifle and got the job done very nicely going into turn 1, which is still one of the best passing zones on this circuit, even though it is so tricky to get into, and there's so many drivers that can either loop it around on corner exit or lock at the brakes and overshoot the corner. It's just the elevation change downhill makes that corner far trickier than it should. And now here comes Stifle using the draft to get back to the inside of Brown, and they'll trade off once again. And while those two go at it, it's brought David Stewart into this battle for 13th, and he's now within maybe a car length or two of the 003.
He's going to get a great run out of the outer loop before they go into the boot, as we now see David Stewart closing that gap, still holding strong in that 15th position where he started, but Kenny Brown has started to pull a little bit of a gap on Joseph Stifle.
As Brown continues to eke away ever so slightly, it's not a lot, but it's enough to where I think it'll be tricky for Stifle to get the draft now. It might be David Stewart's best opportunity to get the draft within this next lap or two, depending on how he sets things up. But a bad entry into 8 there, not the greatest for Stewart. That actually gives the opportunity for Stifle to go gain on Brown, who also didn't get through 8 all that well. Bit of a better exit out of 9, though, for the 23 this time. So he'll have just a bit more space to work with.
Just a little bit indeed. They're now coming out of the final corner, turn 10 or turn 12, I should say. Joseph Stifle now gets a great run, though, compared to Kenny Brown, who got a little bit too loose coming out of there, and they're going to go side by side into the 90. Kenny Brown, though, hard into the braking zone to try to make it work, almost washes up against Joseph Stifle. Stifel's going to now sneak out, get a nose in front of him as they make the climb up the S's.
Really tight work up the S's. It wasn't necessarily a sure thing, but Stifle jumps right back around Kenny Brown, and Brown will now have to worry about David Stewart, who's all over his rear bumper. Stewart is going to go to the top side and try and get around Brown as well.
Something must have happened with Kenny Brown where he messed up that much. He did not get a good run at all through there, dropping back a couple of positions.
Wondering if, because I think he caught trouble. Oh, they all slide. Oh, nearly into it. There goes Brown off and into the barrier there. So a little bit of contact between Kenny Brown and I think that was Clifton Lipple who got into Brown there. But it's a bad lap going worse for Brown. I was about to say that I think he might have picked up some damage coming out the final turn that last lap by. He clipped the wall a little bit. That's what allowed Stifle to get the great run on him down the front stretch. And then everybody just got together there in that corner, entering the boot. And Brown got the worst of it by a significant amount. And there's, I imagine, a little bit more suspension damage than meets the eye to the 23 machine. Took a pretty decent hit into the tire barrier entering the boot.
Yeah, he's going to have to come down pit road to get some repairs done. Not going to be the night he wants to have here at Watkins Glen. So he's going to have to try as much that he can to get fixed in order to try to find a recovery run.
Already jumping back, you got Bruce Robinson and Alberto Fonseca clearing Kenny Brown at this point, and I imagine that Brown almost certainly is going to make his way down to pit road at this time. interested in limping that 911 RSR back to the pits to get service, and we'll see if he can get his car repaired and put together a stronger second half of this race, maybe with a little bit clearer traffic. All the while, though, here comes David Stewart with a good run on Stifle. Those two are still together, still battling. Stewart will go to the outside. Stifle will hold the inside, and they'll go through the outer loop. And I suspect Stifle will at least have the spot for the moment. No, he'll let Stewart go and get ahead of him. So Stewart will jump Stifle to go to 13th, and Stifle will, I think, try and follow Stewart as best he can over at least the next half lap. Maybe try and get the run up through the S's down the back straight like we've already seen a few times this evening.
Yes, indeed. We'll have to see what he can do with recovery, as Stewart is doing a great job working his way up. Pretty soon he'll possibly close up to the top 12 of Brett Holmes, running in 12th place, along with James Patak and Cliff Kayers right now, currently sitting in 10th. Those three cars are separated not by much.
Decent battle there between that trio of Kayer and Patak and Holmes, and then Malia about a second clear of Kikas further up the field. Same for Polisek and Peterson, and then Wagner and Cook still together. Can't really separate them all that much. And Levesque only out in front by about half a second. So they've done a decent job of staying on the 144's tail, much better than they have in recent weeks. And I have a feeling that this might not be the runaway that it's been in some weeks with the 144 machine.
No, it looks like the draft is going to be a good equalizer for these Porsche 911 RSRs as they make the run in towards the outer loop. Wagner tried to get close enough to the back bumper, but could not make it work to where he could dive to the inside coming through that section of the track. So I'll have to follow suit now as they go into the boot.
All of a sudden, this is one of the best battles on track once again, as that group of Kayer and Patak and Holmes and company has stretched itself out. Same for Stewart. He's already got a half second on Stifle, so he's leaving the 003. In his wake is the 914. And Wagner and Cook still can't seem to get away from one another, and Levesque is pretty much the same distance up the racetrack to Wagner that Wagner is to Cook. So relatively evenly spaced out and close together amongst this front three. Could be interesting, especially once we come down for pit stops. This could be a case where he who comes down in short pits and manages to make sure that he's got enough fuel in his car to make it to the end of this may end up in a very good position, and this could put pit strategy on a knife edge, I think, once we hit the midway point of the race.
Yes, it will be a very on a knife edge of determining how much fuel you can put in the car, if you decide to put tires on, and just it's a wide mixed bag of varieties of strategies you can do in order to try to take home the checkered flag here. And that's what some of these drivers have been trying. I mean, we saw last week at Daytona, drivers taking 2, 3, even 1 pit stop throughout the duration of this race. So I'm kind of wondering, will someone try that same strategy here tonight?
We've got to ask the booth question already, Mr. Burris, and a decent one at that, which could play into the strategy of how we broadcast these races. And we get one from Zane Plumley Motorsports, who asks, how much time during the week do the commentators spend the wheel behind iRacing? And to be fair, at least recently, I have not been doing all that much. I've been shuttling my belongings between 2 places and moving, so it's been a bit difficult for me to get behind the wheel over the course of the summer. My hope is that once we get to fall and winter, I might get the chance to jump into one of these things. I've got my eye on the 24 hours of Daytona. I'd like to get prepared for that. I think that would be a lot of fun. But I haven't really had the chance to run as much as I'd like to, although I think to answer that question in general, I usually spend more time when we have interesting combos. Like I think of, as we take a look at the 44 machine, that should be Alberto Fonseca. But I usually try and run a little bit more when we have weird combos. For example, when the Podium Esports Truck Series went to the streets of Belle Isle in Detroit and tricked the Class C truck there, that I ran a significant amount of practice over the week to get a feel for that and understand what the drivers would be going through, just because that's not a combo that you see in any official series on iRacing all that often. But the normal combos, I usually don't spend nearly as much time with them because you generally know how they're going to play out, whether or not it's road or oval or dirt road with a rallycross or dirt oval. So I think in general, the wilder the combo, the more I'll spend trying to get a feel for the place. but it's all to try and make the broadcast better and understand what the drivers are going through.
Yeah, actually, it's funny with my end. I've actually had to cut back on my driving because of all the broadcasts usually running in the NASCAR iRacing series or the iRacing IndyCar series that they just released earlier this year. Running those two championships has been quite fun, but coming out here running these special events or helping to learn more of the track for all these great events that we run here on the Podium Esports or with the PCA, learning those tracks to help get a feel so that way we understand what the drivers know is by far a really fun time as far as taking the time and test, learn the track, learn the cars. That way we can give you, the fans and the viewers, the best possible ways of what these drivers are going through. So that would be how much time I usually run.
You take a look at the 45 of Michael Polosek trying to run down John Cook. Yeah, IndyCar Series is a great one. I probably should run that, given that anyone who's out at Laguna Seca for the Grand Prix of Monterey, you might see yours truly out there. Since I will be on the premises that Sunday for that event, should be a lot of fun. But honestly, you know what I'd love to run at Laguna Seca, especially since it's a smaller road course? Let's get iRacing to scan the new Formula E Porsche machine that they just released a few weeks ago.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And get that on that track. That, I think, would be a very fun combination.
Porsche in general has just come out with some of the most beautiful cars in recent times. I mean, we just also saw the new 911 RSRs take home the checker flag at Silverstone at the season opener for the World Endurance Championship in their respected GTE Pro class. It just ceases to amaze me what they can do.
Beautiful cars, those. I love the livery of the new Formula E car too. How brilliant does that thing look?
Gorgeous. Can't wait to see it hit the street circuits and the start of the new season.
Mm-hmm. And oh, by the way, I don't know if maybe we'll see it in the future in some form of GT Electric series, but the big news with AG we know over the past week or so has been the release of the production spec Porsche Taycan, which is Porsche's first all-electric car. That one, I think, will make a few waves, not only in the weeks, but the years to come. Have a hunch. Have a hunch.
Most definitely. Saw some of the photo releases of that car. Beautiful Porsche indeed. And of course, that it is all electric just gets all the people who are fans of electric vehicles even more excited to come out and give it a little bit of a test drive at least before buying it.
I just look at it and I say, are you listening, Faraday Future? You should be taking notes, but that's just me. That's just me. Maybe I'm a little bit biased at this point. So there's a little bit of Ask the Booth. Also, very quick one here. A hot dog just rolled up bologna. No, a hot dog is a hot dog. It is not a sandwich. It is a hot dog, and it is made of sausages, and you put ketchup and other things on it, depending on where you're from in the country, and it's very tasty. And we'll let the hot dog wars ensue in chat as we take a moment to remind you all and let you all know that we have a giveaway for you, because the PCA has got a few 3-month iRacing membership cards to give away, compliments of iRacing themselves. And there's a drawing that will be open to PCA members that are not currently entered into any of the PCA Sim Racing series. And this drawing is intended to help PCA members new to sim racing get started and join the fun. Head to simracing.pca.org/win to enter the drawing starting right now. Also of note is that the Porsche Club of America hosts over 3,500 events annually across North America. Between the 10 national events and thousands of regional events, there's a PCA event for every Porsche enthusiast. PCA hosts autocross events, concours d'elegance, drivers' education classes, driving tours, social events, and tech sessions. And for more information on those, you can visit pca.org/event. As we
and of course, James.
I was to say, if we want to sweep through some of these battles, Taylor, as I take a peek here, the 14 might be in a pretty solid battle. Could be. Now the 9, David Stewart was in a good battle with Joseph Stiefel. Those two we've called out very, very consistently over the course of the evening. But at this stage, it will slide to 10th. That's what James Patak is, but he's got Cliff Kerr very, very hot on his heels and maybe about a car length or two back.
Gonna have a little bit of work to do after that small mistake for David Stewart, but Joseph Stiefel now back into the picture as he's closing into the back bumper of Clifton Lippel as they come out of turn 12. Complete another lap as we're closing in about towards the halfway point of this race.
Indeed, closing in on the halfway point of this race, closing it on pit stops as well. Those, I suspect, probably won't be too far in the future, as the Vest has opened up a 1.8-second lead on Wagner, who's got about 2 seconds on John Cook, who's got about a second on Podolsek, who's got about 2 seconds on Peterson. That's your top 5 at the moment, so that group all very well spaced out. You've got to go back to Paz and then Patak and Kayer really is your first proper battle on this racetrack. And everybody within the top 10 spread themselves out very nicely. You've also got Clifton Lippel, Joseph Stiefel in a pretty good battle for 13th and 14th.
Looking through the field right now, trying to see if there's any drivers who have been able to work their way up through the field to gain some positions. One of those drivers is Bruce Robinson in the number 386 Porsche. Started in 25th, has worked his way up to the 19th position, pretty much by himself just for a little bit as he's closing in to the back bumper of Alberto Fonseca, who's just about 2 seconds up the road from him, but a great run for him currently.
Bruce Robinson, the lone driver out of the Northern Ohio region of the PCA. So for anyone who lives along Lake Erie and anybody from the Cleveland metro area, that would be your man. Bruce Robinson in the 386, who has done a nice job, up 6 spots from where he started on the grid tonight in 29th. And that, I think, is maybe tops tied with Clifton Lippel, who just got loose and nearly lost it going through the penultimate corner on this racetrack, but he's back on the front stretch, back with a little bit of a gap to Joseph Stiefel, but he and Robinson, I believe, are, I take that back, because Carlos Lopez is up 7 spots, so close to the top, maybe not quite the top, but if you're up about 6 or 7 spots, you're going to be in the running for the Hard Charger Award this evening. I think that's almost a given.
Already got some of our drivers that are in the top 15 coming down pit road. Cliff Kayers is one of the first cars to blink as far as those in the top 15. A couple of other drivers outside the top 20 have also come down pit road, but it's not much longer before we start seeing our top front runners come down pit road, probably within the next lap to 2 laps.
All eyes on the Vest. That's the biggest key. He will be the one that dictates everything as far as the pit strategy goes as the leader. And it could make things very interesting depending on when he pits. That's the question. Also, I think we might have the first German language question in Ask the Booth, which I'm very inclined to take because I suspect if I'm reading this correctly, it might just be a soccer question. And the rough translation that I've been able to piece together is whether or not you like BVB or not. For those that initiated, that would be Borussia Dortmund out of the German Bundesliga. And to that, I don't know if you're all that well educated, Taylor Burris. I'll say, don't have too much of a problem with Dortmund or Bayern München, even though I know both groups of supporters will go after me here. Although, to be fair, if we're speaking Porsche, the answer is very clearly VfB Stuttgart, since, they're sort of based out of Stuttgart, and there might be a prancing horse on the crest of the city of Stuttgart that Porsche shares on the hoods and their logo and all. But hey, what do I know, right?
Most definitely. You have more knowledge on that than I would do right now, James.
My dad lived in Stuttgart for a little bit, so it helps. It makes it very easy to piece those sorts of things together. So I've also been there too. It's a pretty cool place to see. Still have to go back and see the Porsche Museum. It opened up right after I was there, but hey, still cool enough. So First German question and a soccer question at that point too. I never didn't suspect that we'd get that, but I did suspect that we'd see a lot of drivers come to pit road, and we're starting to see some of the ones a little bit further back in the field go for it. Alberto Fonseca, Joseph Stiefel, Jonathan Patterson, amongst others that are trying to come in. Cliff Kayer, Clifton Lippel, David Stewart, and Charles Yao have already come down for service. Dewey Kang also
here comes our leader
at the moment, and here comes William Levesque, and he'll bring in Gresham Wagner too. We'll see if Cook answers suit. He does, as does Podolsek. So all of the top 4 on pit road for service.
Now it's going to be who will get off pit road the quickest as more drivers, John Malia, Leif Peterson, Matthew Kikas. I think it's fair to say that the entire top 10 will be coming down pit road this lap. As now here comes James Patak, Brett Holmes, Jake Steinbrink as well. Everybody's coming down pit road this lap. This is the penultimate lap. Their only pit stop we'll probably see from majority of these drivers, as we're seeing who will win the race off pit road.
It's wild. This is the closest thing we've had to a pit stop under yellow, per se, with all of this traffic, and it could make things very interesting as Wagner nearly gets into, I think that might have been, I couldn't quite tell who that was. We'll see. That was Jonathan Patterson that he nearly got into it with coming out of pit road. But that, if anything, just opened up Levesque's lead. He's up to about 2.2 seconds on Wagner, who's got, I think, some lap traffic just ahead of him. If my memory serves me correctly, he'll jump very quickly around the 254 mark conference. But still, that's time lost. I'd say Levesque picked up about somewhere in the ballpark of half a second on Wagner and a lot more on Koch, who didn't have the greatest of stops. He lost about 3 seconds, it looks like, to Wagner and Levesque just on pit road alone. Polosek, I think, held for the most part, but still in the 4th spot. And then Malia, Peterson, Kikis all together and all bunched up pretty well. That could be a battle for 5th, 6th, and 7th in the not too distant future.
Yeah, great job for these drivers now to get back out onto the track as quickly as possible. Got to hand it to William Levesque with the best pit stop for him, gaining more time on his race lead, as we're still watching that battle for 5th position between John Malia, Leif Peterson, and Matthew Kikas as they're coming out of the second half or the first half of the boot, heading down towards the heel of the boot.
And with everyone by and large done with pit stops for the night, or at least done with the cycle of pit stops, it gives us the opportunity to go through the field and bring you tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break, which is brought to you by iRacing, the world's leading online racing simulation. Developed for the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service, iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the world. iRacing is home to a wide variety of officially sanctioned series, with racing for the Australian supercars that are going to get new supercars next year. I'm a little bit excited about that. The Cars Tour that we broadcast here at Podium Esports, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, and more. William Levesque, trying to go 4 for 4, is your race leader by about 2 seconds over the 5 of Gresham Wagner, who is your highest running Series 2 debutant tonight. John Koch, another driver making his debut in Series 2, runs in the 3rd spot. Michael Polosek, the highest running, and one of the drivers from P1, but Polosek got into someone there, couldn't tell who that was, going through the middle of the carousel, got it to Jonathan Patterson, so that could change things a bit. A lot of damage to the rear wing of Polosek, as he's going to have to gather it back up. He'll lose a position to Leif Peterson, he'll lose a spot to Matthew Kikis, and I have a feeling that Polosek might slide a little bit further down the order. That's a lot of damage on his rear wing that I think he'll almost certainly have to come into pit road to get fixed up. That thing is twisted in an almost corkscrew-like fashion, which is not the way you want those rear wings to be bent normally.
No, not at all.
That's my understanding of it. So that moves Leif Peterson up into the 5th position. Michael Polosek 6th now. Matthew Kikis hanging around in the 7th spot with the NC State colors indeed, that his sister has noted ever so astutely in chat, as Kikis is a Carolina region driver from the Raleigh metro area. Of course, North Carolina State located in Raleigh. Chris Pies currently runs right there in the 8th spot, just ahead of the 05 of Liam Rodzitis, and then James Patak, that ever so famous paint scheme and plan, sits in the 10th position.
11th will be Brett Holmes, followed by Cliff Kayers in 12th position. Clifton Lipples holding strong in 13th position with David Stewart in 14th. 15th is going to be Charles Yao, followed by Carlos Lopez is going to be in the 16th position as he's battling with Kenny Brown in 17th. Joseph Stiefel is currently sitting in the 18th position with Bruce Robinson in 19th. Rounding out your top 20 will be Jonathan Schoon.
Alberto Fonseca sits in 21st, the driver out of the Pacific Northwest region. Seattle, and Andrew Elsom currently in 22nd, one of the Peach Staters. Michel Levesque, father to race leader William, in 23rd at the moment. Michael Knighton, who you heard earlier, is our pre-race interview for tonight's broadcast, in 24th. Dewey Kang sits in the 25th position. 26 belongs to the debutant tonight, Michael Evans, making his first start in the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series. Jonathan Patterson got into it there with Michael Polisek just a lap ago. Currently runs 27th. Jake Steinbrink sits in the 28th position, coming up through the S's. Lane McNeil sits in 29th. 30th is Matthew Mitchell.
Currently sitting in the 31st position is Mark Hoffritz in 31st, 10 laps down. Mark Hughes is currently not able to finish the race. He is going to be finishing in 32nd. And Shaibala Benjopaje will be rounding out your 33-car field.
And that concludes tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break as we ride on board with Liam Radzitas. With over 80,000 drivers on the service and over 80 laser scan tracks and cars to choose from, iRacing is the original esports racing game. For more information, visit iRacing.com today. Also of note here, if you want to get behind the wheel and join the fun, you can learn how to get started in PCA Sim Racing by visiting simracing.pca.org and clicking on the two-part series titled Getting Started in PCA Sim Racing at the bottom of the website. Still time to sign up for the 3-hour endurance race to be run at Spa on October 13th and Series 3 of the PCA SRS. You can visit simracing.pca.org for more information. We'll get back to the racing action, back to all the madness that we can find with Levesque and Wagner and company, but they're all working lap traffic, and the best battle on track actually belongs, at least at the front of this field, to Leif Peterson and John Malia, although Polisek and Kikas also together, and Polisek has decided to hang out with the damage. She's not going to try and come down pit road for service, try and salvage the top 10 finish, but Kikas probably coming, but at the moment, Peterson Malia is just a little bit tighter, so we'll keep our eyes there. If we see anything happening between Polisek and Kikas, who are directly behind these two, we'll jump right back there.
Leif Peterson doing a great job tonight, running around inside that top 10, top 5 all night long as he's holding on, getting back up into the 4th position, holding off Malia. Malia, who needs this good run to try and hold that 2nd position in the point standings. So doing what he needs to do to continue this race.
Just kicking on here as we'll see if Malia can get a good run on Peterson up through the S's down the backstretch. He's got a little bit of the draft. You can see it now as they come up through the backstretch towards the outer loop. He's going to go to the outside. I think he's going to try and maintain position going through the outer loop to get the inside going into the boot, or he may clear Peterson. It'll be tight, but he does indeed. So John Malia up to 4th, Peterson back to 5th. Meanwhile, Polisek still ahead of Kikas, but not by much. Maybe a car length or two at best as they come through the boot.
Great pass indeed. A little bit of lap traffic up ahead of him. That's for Mark Hoffritz as well as Jonathan Patterson, who was involved in an incident between Michael Polisek earlier a couple of laps ago. So they're going to have to negotiate through those drivers when they're coming out of the boot here momentarily.
Also, have to admit, Taylor, there's too little accent you throw on Hoffritz's name there. It's almost like you took German or something and you just didn't tell us.
I try a little bit here and there. Got to make it interesting.
Well, to be fair, it is one of the country's favorite times of year. Fall always beautiful, and the Bavarians in particular very excited about this month with a certain very large festival in Munich kicking off here in about 2 weeks' time. So I suppose you're just getting in the spirit.
Of course.
No surprise. No surprise. That's how we do things. Now, the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series. Still all Levesque in front, but good battles throughout the grid here. Now, Joseph Stiefel and Kenny Brown are back together once again. No surprise there, I would think. Stiefel and Brown have been attached at the hip just about all night long. Also of note, Chris Byers and Liam Radzitas not too far away from each other. Those two within about a half second. And then you've got the Polisek-Kikis battle as Kikis tried to jump to the outside, going to the outer loop. Polisek had enough speed to hold him off. Got a great run through the outer loop and actually to stretch this out to maybe 2-3 car lengths before they get to the boot proper.
Now it's going to be seeing what they can do as they're coming up through the first half of the boot. There we see John Malleus easily gets by John Patterson, goes a little bit wide up into the grass, a little bit there, might make some contact with the tire barrier. Backs up and continues on, but now it is still going to be Peterson trying to close that gap between him and Malleus as they're now going into turn 8. Still great battle going on, as also behind them, Matthew Kikis just watching and waiting, finding a way to get by the likes of Michael Polisek.
Watching and waiting, but as we ring one up for the Podium Esports music reference counter, certainly not commiserating at this point, I think, right?
No, not commiserating at all.
I would hope you get that one. Somebody will call it out.
Somebody who will call it out most.
I wish we should have a trivia prize for everybody who calls it out in the chat. Unfortunately, we don't. But we do have trivia prizes forthcoming as part of our Chuck the Duck trivia question, which is going to pop up here in just a little bit.
A little bit of a battle further back outside the top 20. It's a really good one between Dewey Kang in the 32 and Michel Levesque, the father of our race leader William Levesque. They're going up through the first half of the boot. Michel doing a great job, currently holding on into that 22nd position. Currently also the first car 1 lap down through the field.
Michel just hanging out ahead of Dewey Kang in 23rd. Those two having a lot of fun, it looks like, here. And especially through this part of the racetrack, which can trip up so many drivers. It's a good one to really nail down if you get all your bearings right. So we'll keep all eyes on Michel, see what he can put together in the final few stretches of this race as they, I guess, effectively put themselves in the lucky dog position in the event that we have a full course yellow. But I suspect that probably won't be all that likely as everybody continues to push onward here at Watkins Glen. We'll turn our eyes now to Chris Pies and Liam Rodzitis, who are still together in 8th and 9th. Pies has the position. Rodzitis wants it. And he's got a little bit of work to do, Judge Rodzitis, to try and catch up to Pies at the moment, especially since Pies got a great exit out of turn 1. He'll have a ton of momentum going up through the S's to the backstretch.
Great run indeed, as he's got that momentum on his side, as he's going to get a little bit of help from his friend Mark Hoffritz, who's going to help tow him just down the back straightaway, try to pull that gap from Liam Rodzitis as they go towards the outer loop.
This is another one of those Upper Canada versus battles. This time it's versus the Lone Star region, home of our good friend Doug Atkinson, but also to Chris Pies as well, racing out of Houston, Texas, where you've got a whole bunch of football going on this weekend. I know there's a certain very good ACC team that happens to be playing in Houston as we speak. And then there's a big game on Sunday night too, or Sunday afternoon rather, that Texas is going to bother with. The Lone Star region also includes College Station, which I presume if we're talking football in that area is probably where a good chunk of the attention is going to go this weekend. A bit of a big game for the Aggies on Saturday afternoon. So I suppose Pies and everybody will be paying attention to that over the course of the weekend, but we'll see.
Well, before Pies can go and cheer on his team on Saturday and Sunday, he's got to currently hold off Liam Rodzitis to try to get a good finish position here tonight in that 8th position inside the top 10 as we're closing into the final 10 minutes left in the race.
Getting down to it, getting close to it, and I think at this stage, shall we go ahead and bring him out? He's got some finger licks to work with here, but I figure he probably needs to come visit us too. So, Taylor Burris, if you would please.
Of course. Couldn't do it as good as David did on Monday night for our Southern 500, but ladies and gentlemen, it is time to cue the Chuck.
As we bring you tonight's Podium Esports Trivia question, where you can win Chuck Meduck's Undying Love and Affection by giving us a correct answer. First, the rules as always before we play. First rule, employees and contractors of Podium Esports LLC are ineligible to participate. Second is that only the first response from participants shall be counted. You get one response per person per broadcast, and any responses after the first will be deleted from chat. A simple questions, one related to a question we asked before, but tonight we need one name, any name, doesn't necessarily have to be one in particular, but need one name of a driver who has participated in both Series 1 and Series 2 of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series and was in the top 20 of the point standings coming into this evening at Watkins Glen. Give us any name amongst that bunch, and you'll have the opportunity to get one of the fabled PCA hood badges that are so coveted amongst PCA members, in addition to Chuck's Undying Love and Affection as well. So first name that we get here, we'll call it out on screen to make sure that they get in touch with Jim Henning out of the PCA national offices to make sure they get hood ornamented. Fair enough. Yeah, we'll get that one. She was right on it. Figured she would be. But leave it to Matthew Kikis' sister Katie to nail it down. Matthew Kikis is a pretty easy name to pick out. He's third in points. He ran Series 1 and Series 2. And Matthew Kikis. Oh, well, actually, no. Wow. Whoa. That was weird. That was very weird. I take that back. Because Katie actually got beat. Somehow the Fonseca answer didn't show up in my chat until after the Kikis one did. That's an interesting one. But as it stands, I guess we'll go with Alberto Fonseca from Mayor Fonseca, I think. But yes. Okay. It is indeed Kikis. I had it right the first time, since Alberto's got a little bit of work to do to go into the top 20 in points. So, it is indeed Kitty Baker all along who wins tonight's Chuck the Duck trivia question. I managed to tie myself up. I feel like I should give you credit, Taylor Burris, for staying out of that madness.
It was best for me to let you handle that one. That's why I just always cue Chuck to come on stage.
I don't know. I feel like I could have saved myself from myself a little bit there, but in either case, congratulations to Katie on winning tonight's Podium Esports trivia question with Chuck Duck and winning Chuck's Undying Love and Affection. And we'll look forward to seeing you all next week for another round of Chuck the Duck trivia from Circuit of the Americas, which is where we'll be next Friday night, September 13th, 9:15 p.m. Eastern. Start time for that broadcast right here. Same time, same place, iRacing Esports Network for Round 5 of Series 2 of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series.
Talk about a technical track next week at COTA. I mean, you're talking right now, we're going flat out here. As we're on board with Kikis, flat out track like we see right now here at Watkins Glen, but COTA's a little bit more trickier. Yes, we got a couple of places where you can let that engine just completely go flat out. A lot of technical curves, a lot of technical points in the track where you could easily lose time, position, and maybe even end up in the barrier.
I feel like with Watkins Glen, most of the radii of the turns here are relatively similar, and there's a lot of long stretches of pavement in between them. You can get on the gas and stay on it for a good amount of time. There are points at Circuit of the Americas where that still applies, but it's certainly not quite the same. That technical section through the S's, once you clear the hairpin at the top of the hill, it definitely forces you to roll on the throttle and brake in ways that you don't really see much here at Watkins Glen. The stadium section, model after Hockenheim, the Turn 8 replica that you see from Istanbul Park, all very different sorts of corners from what you see here at the Glen.
Back on board with Liam Rositas, currently sitting inside the top 10, running in the 9th position, trying to find a way to catch back up to Christopher Pies as with time is winding down. Not a lot of opportunities left for him to close up and move into the 8th position.
Just under the 10 minutes ago mark here at Watkins Glen. The final sixth of the race, as David Schulthouse, I know, would give me a very big clap for finally nailing some math for the first time in a very long time. But not too much longer to go, and Lavashki's counted out to 4 seconds over Gresham Wagner, and could well make it 4 for 4 if he can keep everything in one piece for the final stretch of this race. Kunk, Malia, all with a good bit of space. Peterson, though, pretty close on Malia's route tail. Those two have been together for a good chunk of this race, and a big dive there from Peterson into the boot that last time by. You won't get the best of speed coming out of the corner, but still just close enough to make things interesting if Malia slips up. And yes, that was Istanbul Park, not Constantinople Park, because Taylor wanted to get one for the musical reference counter himself. So I'll give credit to Taylor Barris on that one.
Thank you.
Amongst the top 10, Kikis has managed to clear Polisek at last. That happened over the last few laps while those two had been sort of going at it. And Kikis had been working over Polisek for a very good chunk of this race, but Polisek can only do so much to hold off Kikis with the damage to the rear end of the number 45 machine. And then you've got Paz and Rositas. Those two we've talked about in good standing over the course of this race. Brett Holmes, Cliff Kerr also pretty close together as well. That would be for 11th and 12th.
Kerr having an up and down night. Been running around in just shy of that top 10 after starting in the 9th position, as Brett Holmes has worked his way up through the field, starting in the 14th. So it's interesting to see what those two can do as time continues to wind down for them. Anything is possible for these, but it looks like Kerr could have an opportunity to get to the inside as Brett Holmes goes way wide, but still is able to keep it out on track.
All eyes here on what Kerr can do. He might have a good run through the S's, might have a little bit of the draft coming to the outer loop. Think he will. You can see it now. Here comes Kerr down the backstretch. Might have the chance to duck in right at the end. Could be in a very good spot. Caught the draft almost perfectly to get to the inside of Brett Holmes and take away the spot to move up to 11. That's drafting to perfection on the backstretch at Watkins Glen. If you want to catch somebody and really nail it, don't catch them in the middle of the backstretch, which we've seen a lot of people do tonight. Catch them right at the end of it, right before you get into the entry of the outer loop, so that you could just dive it down to the inside and, in that case, leave the driver on the defensive pretty much hopeless. There wasn't much that Holmes could have done to block Kerr, lest he wanted to wreck both he and Kerr. So Holmes slides aside, Kerr jumps ahead. We'll see if the 008 can stretch out the gap between his car and the 06 in these final 6 minutes.
6 minutes may not seem like a lot of time, but when it comes to sports car racing, that is plenty of time to try and find a way to either gain time and pull away from your competition, or close the gaps indeed as well, or even make a mistake to where you could lose all that hard-earned positions and time.
Might see more than our fair share of drivers tackle that issue today as we begin to approach the final 5 minutes of the race. And it gives us one more chance to remind you that PCA has 3-month iRacing membership cards to give away compliments of iRacing over on simracing.pca.org/win. And those cards are open, and the drawing for those cards is open to PCA members that are not currently entered into any of the PCA Sim Racing series. These cards are intended to help PCA members get on board with Sim Racing and get started. Join the fun with us here on iRacing. So if you want to enter the drawing, you can head on over to simracing.pca.org/win as we turn our attention to Leif Peterson, who has now caught John Malia once again. Not for the first time are those two going at it. This time the battle would be for 4th.
As they're coming to make the climb up towards turn 9, Leif Peterson trying to get enough throttle input to where he doesn't lose control of the car coming out of there and close the gap. Malia, though, get a better run off corner exit through turn 9 as they're coming into turns 10 and 11. Let's see what Malia can do. Can he pull the gap away as we're closing into under 5 minutes?
Closing into the final 5 minutes of tonight's race at Watkins Glen. Malia got a good run through 11 and 12 that last time. I think he'll open it up on Peterson just a bit. Good dive down into turn one from Peterson, though, so he'll close it back up just a bit, but still a little bit of space between those two. Podolsek and Kikus still relatively close together, but Kikus has been extending the gap. It's up to just about a second now, and then the Kayer-Holmes battle is the other really good one on track as it stands.
Polasek is losing a lot of time, and Christopher Pies is closing the gap on Michael Polasek. Not by much. I don't know if he'll have enough time to close to where he could catch up to Polasek and pass him, but he is within striking distance if something happens again to Michael Polasek.
If something happens again to Podolsek, but Podolsek, I think, will be very happy to see that he's got some clean track out there. He doesn't really have to worry about any lap cars. It was contact with the lap machine of Jonathan Patterson that sent Podolsek into the fence earlier. That's where he got the damage to his rear wing, and when he's been running by himself, he's been in pretty good shape. Even with all that damage to the rear wing, still managing to hang on to a top 10 run from about 4th or 5th where he was before the incident. So certainly not the finish that he would have wanted. I know he would have been hoping for a podium finish tonight at the Glen. It doesn't look like that's going to be, but still a strong points night for the 45 machine.
I mean, completely compared to what it originally could have been with that damage that he has on the race car. I mean, normally we could probably see drivers that have that kind of damage end up towards the back half of the field, but Polasek doing a great job of recovery, just keeping his nose clean throughout the rest of this run, and just trying to scrounge as many points as he can.
Podolsek has a good reason to pay attention to the points as well. He's pretty high up in the points standings as it stands. Currently 8th, trying to gain a few more. And I think the hard thing for Podolsek, just looking at that number, is that he's had much better runs than 8th for a good chunk of this series and just hasn't had the finishes to show for it. And tonight will sort of fall into that category. He'll gain a little bit, but he'll be looking forward to Coda as an opportunity to really start leapfrogging up the point standings as we turn our attention back to Lee Peterson once again and back to the battle with John Mallia.
Can Leif Peterson find a way to get back into 4th position before the checker flag falls? Mallia, though, has a little bit of flat traffic in front of them as they go into the boot once again. That's going to be Jonathan Schum, who just stays as wide as possible to try to avoid getting involved with this battle for 4th position. Both of them easily clear Jonathan Schum and head down towards the exit of the boot.
At least part of the exit of the boot. This very tricky turn 8 complex. Up into turn 9, you go up the hill a little bit, and then you've got to go all the way around this corner at very slow speed, where you desperately want to get back on the throttle, but you have to wait. Otherwise, you will spin the car out at that point in the racetrack. Then a little bit easier run through 10 and 11 to get back to the front stretch.
Oh, you know what? You just sometimes got to take it easy when you're finishing out, especially when we're this late in a run.
This close into it as William Levesque is about a lap and a half away from finishing off this run for 4. As he comes through the outer loop at the moment, he'll come back around and get the white flag this time by, and then just has to complete one more lap to pick up his 4th victory in the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series 2.
I tell you what, with William Levesque, as we're going back to the battle for that 4th position between Peterson and Mallia, Peterson has a good run, but isn't close enough to try and go to the inside into the outer loop. He's going to just have to follow suit as they make the run into the boot.
Big dive from Peterson into the boot. He tried to get right underneath Mallia on corner entry, and instead is going to give up a decent amount of time going through the toe of the boot. Dives it in again deep, tries to get to the inside of Mallia, nearly does that time, but Mallia will get the better exit out of the corner, so he'll be safe for the moment as Levesque begins to make his way through the final corner and gets set to take the white flag. These two go through turn 8. Here comes Levesque off of the final corner. White flag out for the number 144, and it should just be a cruise to victory lane for him if he can keep it in one piece. So all eyes here on this battle between Mallia and Peterson. Best battle on track in the final lap of this race.
Peterson trying everything he can. He's got one more shot here as they come out of turn 12 for the second to last time. As they're coming through the front straightaway, white flag is out for them. Peterson has to fight with every ounce of power that he has in his race car as they go down into turn 1, the 90, hard braking into there, travels back up, clips the curb just a little bit to continue up through the S's.
I thought he got into the corner almost a little bit earlier than you would want, but it's this run up the S's that is so critical. And this is where Peterson is going to want to try and get the draft off of the rear of Malia's car. You can see it coming a little bit. I just don't know if Peterson will be at Malia's side by the time they get to the outer loop. But there goes Malia down to the bottom to defend to make sure that it won't be an issue. As Peterson will head out to the outside and now is going to have to try and pull the crossover to get alongside Malia, but then thinks better of it, but could have a pretty solid dive into the corner here.
As they enter into the boot and make the climb up to the toe, Peterson trying to see if he can stick it to the inside. Let's see if he does. Late braking, but can't quite get to the inside as they come out of the toe and make the run towards the heel and the exit of the boot. Peterson just running out of options.
Peterson running out of options, but Levesque running away with it one more time out of the final corner tonight, and he will go to victory for the 4th race in a row in the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series at Watkins Glen. And Malia will have 2 more corners to hold off Leif Peterson and lock down P4. Can Peterson do anything to get around the 8?
Gonna be difficult coming out of the final corner for the final time. Malia has about a 2 to 3 car length advantage. It's safe to say Malia will come home in 4th. Peterson will round out your top 5.
Here comes Matthew Kikas and Michael Polasek in 6th and 7th. Kikas working the lap traffic pretty easily. He'll come home with the top 10 finish, as will Polasek this evening. You've got a little bit of time to get back to Chris Paz, Liam Radzitis, and company to sort out everything. James Patak also sorting himself out to finish off tonight's race. And then we'll slide to maybe slide to the running order here in just a bit as we see the final few drivers coming home to finish off tonight's race. Suspect Clifton Whipple might be out of fuel. Don't hear any engine noise out of the 230, but he's still in good shape here, and it's just sort of coasting across the line, and will have enough speed to make sure he brings it home in 12th.
Another driver who's in the same boat, I believe, is going to be Joseph Stifle. He is completely out of fuel, I believe, as well. In his 003, he's running 14th, and David Stewart and Charles Yao. Oh, he is in. You can hear the car in neutral. He is just practically just hoping he can find a way to use maybe a little bit of help from gravity to get by. But there goes also David Stewart, Charles Yao. He will end up finishing in 16th by the looks of it.
It could be a little bit further back than that. We'll see how it goes. But Stewart there racing with, I believe, the lap machine of, or actually, no, Charles Yao. So those two come around, sort through, and get everything done and dusted. They'll come across the line in 14th and 15th, and Stifle, I don't think, is going to be able to finish off this last lap ever so close. It'll just pull it. Yep, he'll park it and be done with tonight's race in 16th. And I suspect that might be everybody across the line. I believe it is. So we are going to take a quick commercial break and then come back with your full field rundown to tell you where your favorite driver finished, and as always, your interviews with your top 3 finishers. You're watching coverage of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series from Watkins Glen International on the iRacing Esports Network.
Of the best sim racers, $100,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge? This is the most competitive and sought-after season in iRacing World Championship history. This is where legends are made. This is the Porsche Esports Super Cup.
Welcome back to coverage of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series here on the iRacing Esports Network. And if you like the promo that we showed just coming out of Brave, you can catch the Esports Drifting Association from Suzuka Circuits over on twitch.tv/official_esport_drift tomorrow at noon Eastern over on Twitch. Taylor Burris, you're going to be there with Elizabeth and Keaton Coulson to cover all the action. I think you're going to have a lot of fun from what is one of my favorite tracks in the world.
Most definitely looking forward to that. First time ever going to call a drift event, and I tell you what, just watching even the promo videos gets you excited for that type of racing.
Exactly. But we still have matters to wrap up with at Watkins Glen this evening, and we'll start by taking you through the full field rundown to tell you where your favorite drivers finish, as always. It is 4 wins on the track for William Levesque, who got the job done tonight again, this time at Watkins Glen. Gresham Wagner comes home in the 2nd position. 3rd was the 997 of John Koch. John Malia finished in the 4th position. 5th belonged to the 913 of Lee Peterson. Matthew Kikis finished in the 6th position. 7th belonged to Michael Podolsek, hung on after the damage he got midway through the race. Christopher Pines finished in the 8th spot after starting 12th. 9th was the 05 of Liam Rositas, and James Patak finished in 10th.
Brett Holmes will come home in 11th position, followed by Clifton Lipple in 12th. Going to be Cliff Kayer in 13th position, followed by David Stewart in 14th. Charles Yao will come home 15th at the last car on the lead lap, with Joseph Stifel in 16th. 17th is going to be Carlos Lopez, followed by Bruce Robinson in 18th. 19th will be Jonathan Schum, and Alberto Fonseca will round out your top 20.
21st is Dewey Kang, and Kenny Brown finished in 22nd. 23rd was Michael Knight, who you heard pre-race as part of our interview series. Michel Lavache finished in 24th. 25th was Andrew Elson. Michael Evans was 26th. Jake Steinbring finished in 27th. 28th was Jonathan Patterson. 29th was Mark Hofritz, and Lane McNeil finished in 30th. Matthew Mitchell, Mark Huth, and Chabal Bagnopadia finished in 31st, 32nd, and 33rd, respectively, to round out the field for tonight's Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series event at Watkins Glen. And at this point, we can get ready to bring in the race winner, who had a bit of a different path that he normally has had, at least up to this point in the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series to victory. But William Levesque, I think that's a good place to start. So we'll start and ask you the question. You didn't get the Fast Track Sims Pole Award tonight. So how did that change, or did that change even at all, your approach to how you started this race?
Yeah, ain't that a bummer, right? No, I just messed up. Like first lap was just a kind of a crappy banker lap, and then I went out again for another attempt, and it literally ended at turn one because I got loose under braking. But good job to John anyway. Uh, we'll come back in the next tracks for qualifying bragging rights. But yeah, for the start of the race, obviously we all knew going in it was gonna be a huge draft lock. A couple laps in, though, I kind of just got impatient with this nonsense because I could save enough fuel anyway on my own. So I went on the attack, and the guys didn't make it too hard anyway because I guess they just wanted to follow around and save fuel behind me. But unfortunately, John made a couple mistakes. He hit the wall, I think. And then Gresham made a couple mistakes as well, and he finally lost the draft. But I had to work for that. He had really good pace. Yeah, up to the end of the race, he was just keeping pace and trying not to make any mistakes or lose time in with lap traffic. Because Gresham kept me honest the entire time. But yeah, in the end, it worked out, and 4 in a row.
I was going to ask, you mentioned the draft a little bit, and I want to come back to that just because this is a sort of an equalizing track in that sense. So far as road courses go, it's a little bit more difficult to string yourself out here compared to somewhere that might be a little bit tighter, like say a Lime Rock, or maybe somewhere bigger like a Road America. So uh, with him in your rearview mirror the entire time, was that unsettling at all? Did it change anything, or is this a case where you have enough experience to where uh, you're just going to go to the front, save fuel, be done with it, and clock out?
Well, I mean, I just drove, and whatever happens, happens. Really. I knew as long as I didn't crash, it would probably work out in the end. So yeah, I mean, it's racing, so obviously you're gonna have to race other cars, and you just gotta keep focus and see what happens.
And now that you have 4 in the bag, it allows us to turn our attention to Circuit of the Americas, which is where we are next week. It's the full course with this 911 RSR. What are your initial thoughts on racing at Coda?
I wish I had 3 screens because on a single monitor it's pretty bad around the hairpins. Other than that, the long straight is annoying, but the track is super technical, so hopefully it shouldn't be a draft lock. So we'll see how it goes there.
We shall, and we'll give you the chance to send your shout outs and your thank yous as always before we get ready for that race. So, who do you need to thank for victory number 4?
My trusty spotter, teammate of mine, always helpful. And other than that, our sponsors, obviously, Team Cube, Team Lab, and V-Racing, and everyone at NX Racing. And yeah, pretty much it.
Not too much change here for William Levesque, who comes from P1 once again. William, thank you so much for your time and congratulations. We look forward to seeing you 1 week from tonight in Austin.
All right, cheers.
So there's your race winner. And from your race winner, we slide to Gresham Wagner, who finished P2 this evening. And he is with Taylor Burris.
Here with Gresham Wagner finishing in second place today. Gresham had a great run at the start of the race, was able to even get up to the front and lead a couple of laps, but unfortunately could not keep up with William. Tell us how your race went for you as you were battling with John.
Yeah, at the start we were all kind of together, so we were just swapping on the straight with the draft every lap. And once William got up there, he was just a tick faster than both of us, so I was happy to just kind of ride behind him and keep with the draft. But unfortunately, I did get a little bit sideways 1 lap down to the carousel, and he kind of broke the draft from there. And so I was just trying to hold a gap to John and, I don't know, run a clean race for the rest of it because I didn't think I was going to catch William at that point.
Do you think possibly with the help of the draft on that back straightaway, if you did not get loose through the carousel of that corner of the outer loop, would you have been able to keep up and maybe even pass William Levesque in the final laps?
Keep up, maybe. I don't think I was going to get past him, but after we got separated for the second half of the race, our pace was more or less pretty much the same. Lap to lap, we would give a few tenths and gain a few tenths on each other. So I think with the draft, if I didn't make any mistakes, I would have been able to stay with him. But he was ultimately the better driver, and he didn't make any mistakes. I think it would have been hard to get around.
All right. Now, as we get ready to go down into Texas at Austin at COTA, how confident do you feel about continuing your streak of getting another top 3 run here?
I think that's another big draft track, and I think it's a track that's it lures you into making mistakes pretty easily. So I think maybe just underdriving a little bit and just keeping it clean for the entire race is going to be the key, because once you lose the draft, if you overdrive, then you're just going to fall back from there. So.
All right. Well, we look forward to seeing you at COTA next Friday night. Before we let you go, is there anyone you'd like to thank?
Just my friends, because it's what makes iRacing fun. So they were watching me during the race and talking to me and everything. So it kind of, I don't know, it gives it a fun atmosphere. So I'd like to thank my friends, and they also just push me to be better. So when I'm doing practice sessions and everything, it really helps to have some people there to pace yourself against.
Well, we look forward to seeing you at the next run at COTA Gresham. And again, congratulations on finishing second.
Thank you.
And James Pike has caught up with our final driver on the step of the podium, John Koch.
Hey, good evening. Thanks for having me again.
Good to have you back here, John, in another podium interview. And this race, it seemed like a tale of two halves. It seemed like the pit stop was the tricky bit, but outside of that, it looked like you and Gresham were largely equal for pace. Did it feel like that way from your perspective?
Yeah, it did. I ran into a little bit of trouble at the beginning of the race. I had a pretty big slide at the carousel after the long straight, and that really threw the grip on the tires off for quite a while. But before that, practice and qualifying, I mean, the four of us were actually pretty even, pretty close on as far as pace goes.
And made for a lot of fun. And I have to imagine you're going to be pretty excited about jumping up in the point standings just a little bit. You'll clear Kenny Brown for 5th, and it'll be close. I think you might have Liam Rodzitis and Matthew Kikis to a really strong run for you tonight, so you could be potentially as high as 3rd in the standings. And to be there after tonight, you have to be excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I did not know. I kind of took a peek at the standings beforehand, but it's I wasn't sure how exactly it was going to work. Polisek's kind of pretty close, and the other guys you mentioned. So it was an important race as far as the points go.
As I look at this and try and do the math a little bit more, I think officially it'll be 4th. You'll be close to Kikis, but not quite past him. But in either case, you'll get the chance to pass him at Circuit of the Americas next week. What are your thoughts on COTA coming up next Friday?
To be honest, I've never done a race at COTA. I don't know why, but I've not done any races there. I've done a few practice laps way back, so I will have my hands full next week for this. But I do like the track as far as watching it for racing, and I think it could be a great track to race this car on next week.
So then we should expect a lot of fun out of you and of the 997. So before you go, as always, take a moment to send your thank yous and your shout outs to everyone who makes it possible for you.
Yeah, I'd like to thank, of course, Doug Atkinson and Jim Hemig, as well as Michael Neiden for kind of the more behind-the-scenes work that he's been doing. I'd also like to thank James Huth he couldn't be here today, unfortunately, to race, but I want to thank him for the awesome paint job that he provided for me. And lastly, Fast Track Sims for the gift for the podium finish or the top qualifying spot. They make great stuff, and I'm looking forward to that gift certificate.
It should be a lot of fun, I think. So, John, thank you so much for spending some time up with us in the booth post race. Congratulations on your podium finish, and we'll see you 1 week from tonight.
All right, see you then. Thanks.
As John Koku finishes P3. And so from P3, we turn to TB and we listen to the likes of Taylor Burris's final thoughts.
Of course, as we close today here at Watkins Glen, we have once again saw the domination of William Levesque. And the question still will continue probably all the way to the end of the season. Can anyone stop William Levesque? We did see a little bit of that tonight as he was not the pole winner like we saw in the previous 3 races. So who knows? Maybe, just maybe, with the difficulty of how COTA is, we could see a possible new winner, or we could see the continuation dominance of William Levesque.
It's an interesting circuit, COTA. It gets very wide in some places, very tight in others, and it is technical no matter how you attack it. It will be a test for all the drivers of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series 1 week from tonight, September 13th. We'll go live with a broadcast right here on the iRacing Esports Network at 9:15 p.m. Eastern. But before that, if you like what you hear, what you see from Podium Esports, be sure to check out the Twitch channel we have at twitch.tv/Podium Esports. It's where you'll find past broadcasts in the last 2 months. And it's also where you'll find our broadcast of the iRacers Lounge Podcast Oval Series this Sunday night, September 8th, from Auto Club Speedway. We'll go live with a broadcast at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and that broadcast will also feature the first race in that series to use the brand new Class B stock cars that were released as part of the new build in iRacing yesterday. So all the new Chevrolet Camaro, Ford Mustang, and Toyota Supra will be in action from Southern California on Sunday night. We hope you can join us on twitch.tv/Podium Esports for all the fun there. It is time for us to close out tonight's broadcast of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series show. To everybody at the PCA, to Doug Atkinson, to Jim Emmig, to everybody at Podium Esports, DJ Lyon, Gary Sexton, and John Theodore. For tonight's producers, Cisco Scamruso, and for my colleague up here in the booth, Mr. Taylor Burris. I am James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports. Thank you so much for watching tonight's broadcast of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series for Watkins Glen International. We hope to see you either Sunday night on twitch.tv/Podium Esports for the iRacers Lounge Podcast Oval Series from Auto Club Speedway, or next Friday night from Circuit of the Americas.